Good evening, Addison, and welcome to the combined meeting of the committees for Monday, June 2nd. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Trustees Del Rosario.
Here.
Reyes. Here. Co-chairs Kluzny.
Here.
Nasty.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here. Item number 2 is consideration to approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 combined meeting of the committees.
Motion. Second.
I have one correction. To item number 12, the paragraph with Attorney Freeman states, I just want to clarify that I believe Attorney Freeman stated that the motion was being made subject to approval of the village attorney and village manager. So if you just make, I can give you the exact verbiage after the meeting, but just to be clear on that one. Any other items? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, audience input regarding agenda items before the committee. We have none. Item number 4 is discussion of accounts payable. Earlier this evening, we reviewed the following directives. Directive number 26-06 in the amount of $15,000.54. Directive 26-07 in the amount of $840,631.33. Directive number 26-08 in the amount of $910,002.66. The gross payroll for May was $4,249,893.46. We also have one adjustment. Directive number 25-74 was approved on April 21st, 2025 in the amount of $1,586,554.41. It's being reduced by $270, making the new total $1,586,284.41.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, consideration of a resolution approving 2 estimates from ABEEP LLC for the purchase of 1 Tate TB 9400 800 megahertz transmitter, 8 IP receivers, required accessories and reprogramming, and the total not to exceed amount of $45,687.33, and a request to waive the formal bid process. Funding in account number 410.9941-4304.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We are asking for waiver of bid on this as it is part of our capital improvement and replacement plan for our radio systems. ABEEP has been the vendor for these for the last 14 years that I've been with the village, 11 years I've been with the village, and we are very happy with their performance, and they also give us the service and support currently today.
Very good. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is consideration of a resolution approving an estimate from NLogic Consulting LLC for extreme core switches for the Village of Addison in the not-to-exceed amount of $183,013.64, and a request to waive the formal bid process. Funding in account number 620.9962-4304 and 410.9941-4304.
Make a motion. Second.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We are also asking to waiver bid on this project. This will be the most complicated project IT has taken over the last 7 years. If I can relate this is the replacing of the network switches at the Consolidated Dispatch Center. the data center, which is pretty much the spinal cord of everything we do in the village and ACDC. Over the years, this has grown extensively with the changing of all analog systems to digital at ACDC, and also with the village relocating most of its infrastructure over in that hardened data center.
Okay. And the switches are in addition to or replacement of?
These are replacement. The current ones are 8 years old. We are, again, with the hoping to grow with these new switches. There's a newer technology called fabric switching, which these do have, which we plan to use in future endeavors.
Very good. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Manager.
Item number 7, consideration of a resolution approving a proposal from Granicus for the renewal of the Government Transparency Suite subscription in the amount of $20,775.51, funding in account number 100.1050-4110.
Second.
Thank you. Don.
Thank you very much. We have 2 items for you this evening from Community Relations. The first is a resolution to approve a proposal from Granicus for the renewal of the Government Transparency Suite subscription. Granicus is the company that hosts all of our video on the Village of Addison's website, addisonadvantage.org. So meetings, the live streaming of those meetings and programs 24/7 that you see on our channel. This is how we put them on our website. This also is the platform where we post meeting agendas and minutes. We've used Granicus now since 2007. Very good relationship with them. And with this proposal, there are 2 additional years that are written in your memorandum that you can see that would cover us through June 30th of 2028. And we recommend your consideration of this resolution.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8 is consideration of a resolution approving a web services sales agreement from Revise LLC for updates to the village's websites in the amount of $11,182 for the first year, funding an account number 100.1050-4110.
Make a motion. Second.
Thank you. Don.
Thank you. Now, this is the contract that will begin the process of redesigning the Village of Addison website and the websites for the Addison Police Department, the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center, and the It Happens in Addison Special Events websites. Revise is the company that we used back in 2017, worked very well with our staff, and because we would be going with Revise, we really will be cutting down on the length of time that it takes to do this project because they have all of our content. What we're doing right now at the staff level with the departments is we're going through all of the areas of, for example, the village site, if there's anything that's redundant in there or conflicting, and we're cleaning that up. And then once that all gets taken care of, we kind of hand things off to Revise. What our ultimate goal is to make all of these sites have the same appearance and branding. They will retain the URLs, but everything links to the addisonadvantage.org website. So if that's all a person would know searching, they're good to start there, and then they can get to things like the police department, like the special events, the It Happens in Addison site, and so on. Over time, these websites have grown and been created, and now it's time to bring them all in, so at least we have a similar look across all of those sites. So we've been in touch with Revise for the last several months. They have submitted this proposal. It is covered in the upcoming, in this year's fiscal year budget for the amount to do the redesign work, and then we will have an annual fee that will support us for the next 5 years, years 2 through 5. So with all of that, I'd recommend that you consider this proposal this evening.
Thank you. We did talk about this at budget. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee?
Will it still maintain every department's information?
Yes, yeah, all the departments are going to still have their information in there. The goal, obviously, is to make things as user-friendly as possible. And as I said, our goal right now is to make sure that we're cleaning things up and making sure that we don't have anything conflicting. Things like access to signing up for Code Red will be prominent across all of those pages of the village site, so you'll be able to find it. But we want to keep our branding similar across all the sites. We're close, but not 100%. So that's our goal, is to make all the sites look very uniform, very Addison.
Go ahead, Sam.
So, Don, if someone just punches in the Addison Advantage, as you see here,
Yep.
there will be access to every department?
Right. Well, so addisonadvantage.org, that's the village website. And from that site, you would be able to get to Public Works Department, Police, the Special Events page, ACDC. You see what I'm saying? Plus all of our internal departments here. Yeah, if you only knew that, then you'd be good to go. That's a great place to start.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Don. Item number 9 is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Rubicon Environmental Services LLC for the ceramic diffuser cleaning project at the North Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $16,600. Funding in account number 500.5032-4180.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of this year's budget, funding was provided for the cleaning of the ceramic diffusers at the North Treatment Plant. There are 6 aeration basins that contain roughly 3,000 diffusers that will be cleaned using a chemical. Rubicon will provide all the labor and materials for this service, and we've worked with them in the past, and they've done a great job for us. So at this time, we're requesting your approval of the quotation from Rubicon in the amount of $16,600. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10 is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Comline Sanderson for the purchase of replacement parts for the rebuild of the North Wastewater Treatment Plant belt filter press in the amount of $27,450, and a request to waive the formal bid process. Funding in account number 500.5032-4299.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The North Treatment Plant was given approval to do a multi-year rebuild of the belt filter presses at the North Treatment Plant. This includes replacing drums, bearings, and rollers on the current presses that we have. All of the replacement parts will be OEM and provided by Comline Sanderson, which is the reason that we're asking to waive the formal bid process tonight. They're also the sole source provider for this service. So at this time, we're requesting approval of the quotation in the amount of $27,450 and waiver of the formal bid process. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of one John Deere X758 Signature Series tractor and related equipment from AHW LLC through a Sourcewell joint purchasing contract in the amount of $27,466.76. Funding in account number 640.9964-4343.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As part of this year's equipment replacement fund, we were given approval to purchase a John Deere X758 Signature Series tractor with ancillary equipment for the Building and Grounds Department. They'll use this for their daily operations, especially around the Village Hall, so it will be used quite a bit. And we are making this purchase from a Sourcewell contract, so we were guaranteed the best pricing available for this. So at this time, we're requesting your concurrence to purchase this equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. We did discuss this at budget. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12 is consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of two 2025 Ford Escape vehicles from Curry Motors Commercial Center through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative Contract in the total amount of $61,437. Funding in account number 640.9964-4352.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works Department budgeted to replace a 2015 Chevy Tahoe with 127,000 miles, as well as a 2013 Ford Explorer with 140,000 miles, and will replace these with two brand-new Ford Escapes. These vehicles are used on a daily basis within our Environmental Services Division, and our Fleet Division has also recommended that we change these vehicles out. Current pricing is through the Suburban Purchasing Co-op, so we received the best pricing for this, and the purchase for both of these will be $61,437. Once we purchase these new vehicles and receive them, we will place the two vehicles, which are the 2015 Chevy Tahoe and 2013 Ford Explorer, on a disposal ordinance, and then they will go up for auction. So at this time, we're requesting your approval to purchase these two new vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13 is consideration to accept the proposal for a one-year contract extension of bid number 22-6-1 from SNF Polydyne, Inc. for the purchase of liquid polymer in the not-to-exceed amount of $67,000. Funding in account number 500.5032-4205.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2022, SNF Polydyne was given the award for the bulk liquid polymer. They were actually the only bidder for this service, and they submitted a unit price of $13.24 per gallon. We reached out to them to provide us with a updated proposal, since this contract was for 3 years and it allowed for 2 additional one-year extensions. And they actually agreed to keep pricing the same, so we won't see any type of increase for this contract. So at this time, we're requesting your approval for the first one-year extension in a not-to-exceed amount of $67,000. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 14 is consideration to accept the proposal for a one-year contract extension of bid number 22-5-1 for laboratory services from Tech Lab, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $23,500. Funding in account number 500.5032-4110.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2022, we awarded the bid for laboratory services to Tech Lab. Scope of work included preparing, transporting, and testing pollutants for compliance for the village's 2 wastewater treatment plants for our discharge permits. The original contract was for 3 years with 2 additional one-year extensions if there was an agreed-upon price. We reached out to Tech Lab for the first extension of this contract, and they agreed to keep all the pricing the same from the original bid. We've been very happy with the service that they provided us, so at this time, we're requesting your approval for the first one-year contract extension at Tech Lab and the not-to-exceed amount of $23,500. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Item number 15 is consideration of a resolution approving a first amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 626 North Swift Road.
Make the motion.
Second.
Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Verizon's lease consultant contacted staff requesting the village to consider amending their current lease agreement with us currently right now for their existing cell equipment that's located at village property at 626 North Swift Road. The current lease agreement was approved by the village board back in 1999. We had a 5% escalator provision in there annually. So these monthly base rents really escalate after a period of time. We're in 2025. So Verizon has been looking at all of their macro sites. These are their large antenna sites, not the mini sites or the micro sites, and they're trying to consider which ones are, not consider, but evaluate which ones are high rent relocation sites. In other words, are they worth keeping at that location based on the rent that they're paying? And the 626 North Swift Road location was one of those that they've identified. This was a lengthy negotiation with them. I've been working on this for about 2 years, back and forth, went through different lease consultants with Verizon. Some left. That's how long this took. What they wanted to do was drop the 5% escalator clause to 3%. I was able to renegotiate with them the 3.75. This site was, again, in jeopardy of not being active anymore with Verizon. Their fifth and final term of this lease ends January 1st, 2026. The rent would have grown to over $7,000 a month. So you can see it's very difficult for them to maintain these high monthly rents. They've cited that their industry is experiencing dramatic shift in the past couple of years, causing them to reevaluate their sites. Shifting technology comes from switching from low-frequency antennas, 4G, to high-frequency, which is 5G. It's caused their current macro sites to have a reduced range of coverage. It's causing Verizon and other carriers to greatly expand the number of cell sites they have in a given area. Also concerns in technology that's hitting the roadways with autonomous cars and semi-trucks. They rely on 5G connectivity. In addition to that, and their macro sites just aren't built for that, so they have to change that. There's coverage issues, providing the ability to call from anywhere using tall towers, capacity issues, and then they also indicated because Sprint failed to merger their overhead or manage their overhead costs, which resulted in them going under about $30 billion in debt, tens of thousands of dollars being worth of escalator provisions, sites being decommissioned. So in order to ensure the site remains financially viable, Verizon proposes to reduce the monthly rent to $3,000 from what would have been $7,000, and then reduce that escalator provision from 5% to 3.75%. And then they would have 6 additional 5-year renewal periods for this. This was something that I was working with finance on and our village manager to kind of extrapolate the cost over a period of time. This seemed reasonable based on the alternative, which would be them basically leaving. So the resolution was prepared by our village attorney. This whole entire draft resolution and ordinance was, or resolution was reviewed by staff, and it was found to be acceptable. So we're asking for your consideration in approving the amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I don't have any questions on that. I think we've seen this before. Any questions from the committee? Sam?
Mike, do they dispose of the 4G antennas, or they replace them, or they leave both up, 4 and 5?
Eventually, they would replace all of them and convert them all to 5G, but they'll do that over a period of time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 16 is consideration of a resolution approving a First Amendment to a lease agreement with the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 920 North Lombard Road.
Motion. Second.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just like the last one, this is very similar, but just not as drastic. The current lease agreement was approved by the village board back in 2017. It called for a monthly base rent of $2,750, and an annual 3% escalator. They're just asking for a reduction of the base rent to $3,000 now, but continue to keep the 3% escalator provision. And they're in the second term of the lease right now. This would actually end in November 1st, 2027, and that monthly base rent would have grown to about $3,695. So going backwards to $3,000 isn't too bad for this site. This wasn't one of their high rent relocation sites, but it was one that they were looking to bring their costs down because of the other reasons that I mentioned before with the 4G and the 5G conversion and all the other issues that they have cited for us. So again, they're proposing to reduce the base rent to $3,000, still maintain the 3% escalator provision. This would have 7 additional 5-year renewals. And again, this was another one of those lengthy processes that I've dealt with their consultant for a while, their lease consultant. So again, this resolution was reviewed by our staff as well as our village attorney, and it was found to be acceptable.
Thank you. I have no questions on this item. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Building and Zoning and Development Committee items. Item number 17, consideration of an ordinance amending certain provisions of the Village of Addison zoning ordinance with respect to the M2 General Manufacturing District regarding fire and law enforcement training facilities.
Motion.
Second.
Mike?
Thank you, Chairman Nasty. Attached in your packet is an ordinance that's amending the zoning code to include intermodal shipping containers for government entities to construct and operate fire and law enforcement training facilities in the M2 General Manufacturing District. If you remember, last month we brought this to the board with regard to building code changes. This is really the same thing, only from a zoning standpoint. The building code, we amended to provide a design pathway to actually construct these intermodal shipping containers where we didn't have one in the building code. So our current building code's 2018. The most recent building code, or the most current building code, is the 2024 that we plan to adopt later in the year. We didn't have any design parameters for those shipping containers, so which is why we brought the building code changes. Now we're bringing the zoning code changes, the text amendments to the zoning code, to allow these in the M2 district, set forth a height restriction of 4 stories and or 4 floors, I should say, 4 stories, 4 floors, and 46 feet in height max. So right now, there is no provisions in there for intermodal shipping containers. These would go in the M2 zoning district, and it would be limited to law enforcement and or fire and law enforcement training facilities only at this point. This did go to our Planning and Zoning Commission on May 14th, where a presentation was made, and the Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation to approve the zoning actions. So tonight, we're asking for your consideration and waiver of second reading to approve this. The other thing I failed to mention was not only we're allowing it in the M2 district, but it would be as a special use only. So anybody who wanted to build these, any fire or law enforcement training facilities, would have to come to Planning and Zoning and then ultimately the Village Board for approval. It wouldn't be allowed as a permitted use, only as a special use.
But are using these things for all kinds of purposes. Shelters, houses. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion stands approved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And moving on to Public Health, Safety, and Judicial Committee items. Item number 18, consideration of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 13 of the Village Code regarding open burning. Sir?
Second.
Roy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item for your consideration is an ordinance addressing open burning in adding section to Chapter 13. So for the last couple of years, we've had issues with both the fire department and police department responding to calls for fires that have gotten a bit too big, out of control, and we haven't really had an area to address these. So this ordinance was drafted with the help of the fire department and the attorneys as well, taking a look at anything beyond recreational fires. Recreational fires would still be allowed, but this addresses those fires where bonfire type scenarios, burning of building material, things that are unhealthy to the environment. This would allow us to then cite the owner and address the issue and hopefully put an end to it. So we're asking for your favorable consideration.
Okay. And the recreational fires still have to be in a contained environment?
Contained fire pit,
Right.
yes.
And only certain things, no garbage, no refuse, just dried wood and so forth?
Clean fuels, so
And
clean
clean
firewood,
fuels, yes.
charcoal, clean fluids, anything beyond that is prohibited.
Okay, and anybody who wants to burn other things has to get a special permit or certified by the the device and the permit from the EPA and fire department?
That's correct. They would have to get it from the EPA, but also the fire department will handle those special permits. But as we've been, as has happened in the past with controlled burn areas, the village would still be notified that this is taking place.
Okay. I have no other questions. Any other questions from the committee? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item number 19, consideration of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 11 of the Village Code to add a new Article 18 regarding motorized bicycles. Is there a motion?
Second.
Roy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's another ordinance amendment for Chapter 11, adding Article 18 regarding motorized bicycles, or as more commonly known as e-bikes. We have been getting a lot of complaints more and more recently. Our most recent meeting we had with the public, we had our second chat with the chiefs, and the theme for the night was e-bikes. We're getting them all over town. We've seen them. Our officers are seeing them. I've been seeing them. You've probably all seen them, but they're going down the roadway. And this isn't just kids that are going to the sidewalks. These are young adults, teenagers, grown men and women that are going down the middle of Lake Street on their electric bikes and scooters and causing all sorts of traffic issues. And talking to other agencies, many agencies have gone to similar type ordinances to address this because we think it is only a matter of time before something does happen and somebody is unfortunately hurt or killed. They're getting a little reckless out there. So what we've done is we've mirrored state law. So last August there was a public act that was put into effect by Illinois to address a lot of the different classes of these bikes. And there's also state law already in place under the Illinois Vehicle Code that addresses these. So we've mirrored a lot of that stuff on a local level, basically saying you can do it on the roadway, but you have to be 16 for certain classifications of e-bikes, and you have to be 18 for certain classifications of electric scooters, and not on any off-roadway areas where motorized transportation is currently not allowed. So our plan is if once the board has approved this after a second reading, we'll be pushing out a lot of public notifications, social media. We're already working on some pamphlets that'll make the understanding of it a little easier and educating the public on what they can and can't do.
I was going to ask about the communications because there's so many different categories and rules that it's confusing, and not only are the children responsible, but the parents of the children have to know these rules and what they allow their children to do. So I'm glad we're doing that. Thank you.
Correct.
I have no other questions. Questions from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And item number 20, consideration of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business license denials.
Motion.
Second.
Roy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one more ordinance amendment for you, and this is just a very minor change to Chapter 10 regarding business licensing and business license denials. On reviewing these with the village manager and the village attorneys, we realized that there is a need for just some slight additional language, stronger language that would give the village manager a little more teeth in issuing a denial when it's reasonable to do so. And what we're specifically adding into this is just a line under Section C that says the applicant's prior conviction of any felony or misdemeanor charge, which indicates an inability to operate a safe, honest, and/or legitimate business within the village, the village manager also can use that as cause for a denial.
Okay, sounds like a safe plan for the residents of the community. I have no questions. Any questions from the committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Roy. And item number 21, presentation of the village implementation of a pavement managing system by Applied Pavement Technology, a consultant to the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning.
Motion.
Second.
Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, our engineering division, our village engineer, and his staff, who are actually in attendance, our village engineers here, and our assistant village engineer, Kai and Joel, they applied for funding to receive technical assistance from Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, CMAP, to implement PAVER, which is a pavement management system for our village streets. CMAP launched its pavement management program to help local agencies adopt effective strategies for maintaining road infrastructure. Since its inception, the program supported over 90 local agencies in implementing pavement management systems. We received this funding. The village only had to pay $3,000 for this system that you're going to hear all about tonight, which ranges anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000. So what a deal for $3,000 to be able to get a system like this. And you're going to see that the system and the technology here is really going to be able to save the village a lot of money long-term on maintaining our roadways. In the fall of 2024, CMAP partnered with Applied Pavement Technology to assist our staff in integrating the paver system. This collaboration aims to enhance pavement maintenance and preservation efforts for the village streets. Tonight, we have Mark Gardner, who is with Applied Pavement Technology, and a representative from CMAP. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
I'll introduce him.
Yeah, you can introduce him, yeah. So Mark's here to give the presentation, and if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight and present the results of the study that we've done. I'm joined tonight by Jose Rodriguez with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, the people who took care of all of this, and Abbas Kechwala. He's with AECOM, and they oversee our work as a technical kind of advisor, and Applied Pavement Technology did the actual implementation of the pavement management system for the village of Addison. So go ahead. Yeah. So as Mike said, the CMAP is the comprehensive, the agencies are the region's comprehensive kind of planning organization. And through their pavement management program, what they're doing is promoting the tools and technologies and knowledge to help you more efficiently manage your roadway assets. I mean, I know it's obvious you've been managing your roadway assets quite well. I'll get to that in a minute. But what this allows you really to do is see the cause and effect relationship between investment decisions and the resulting conditions 10 years from now. So you can plan and make performance-based and data-driven decisions instead of just responding to the loudest outcry of, I live on the worst street, or, this. You make decisions based on real numbers, and they're accountable and they're transparent. And in today's, political climate, that's a good thing to be. So that is kind of what CMAP is doing here. It promotes asset management at the local level and the use of what's called pavement preservation techniques that are more efficient use of treatments for maintaining roadways. Go ahead, Abbas. So why does pavement management make sense? Just very quickly go over why it makes sense. It really does give you an opportunity to make data-driven, performance-based, accountable decisions. It gives you an opportunity to reflect those decisions and why they make sense in a very understandable way to your constituents. You can show them and say, well, if we spend this money, this is what we're going to do with it. When you provide a plan, a forward-looking plan, and you give data behind it, it's generally much more readily accepted than it is if you just say, well, we need to do this. We need to throw, and there's a lot of money being thrown at roads. I mean, they're not cheap. When you fix one, when you build one, it costs a lot. So to be able to justify that with a forward-looking projection and then go in the future, come back and say, we said we were going to do this, this is what we did, it resulted in this. As you do that, you get more accountability, you get more support from your constituents. So that's what we're trying to do here, is provide the opportunity to build credibility, communicate better with your constituents, and then make those decisions that are really in the best interest of the village. So over the last 6 to 9 months, we've been working with Joel and Kai and Mike to build this system for the village. We started with a roadway network definition, your 111 miles of roads, and we put that into a database. Then we used our vehicle to go out and collect condition data. Is this high enough? Is this Hopefully you can hear me. We used our van to go out and collect condition data. We put all that in to the pavement management system, and we've performed some analyses, which I'm going to present for you here in just a minute. We provided training to village staff in how to run that pavement management system with our goal of making the village now informed and educated to be able to run this by themselves, so they don't need a consultant to do this for them. They do it by themselves. And we're here to answer questions. A boss or myself can answer any questions that the village staff may have in the future. But our goal was to equip village staff with everything they needed to operate this system and help you make informed decisions. So here's our van. You can see it there. Magic Bus goes around and collects data, drives down the road. It's collecting images. It's collecting laser measurements that tell us a lot of things about your road. It tells us what kind of cracking is there, what kind of rutting, the ruts that you see in the road, how rough the road is. We use all of this in that pavement management system to establish a current condition score and then use models in the pavement management system to predict the condition into the future. Go ahead, boss. Once we get all that data back from our van, we do automated distress algorithms extract the distress data from those measurements, and then we actually have trained surveyors that look at it to make sure that all of that condition data is accurate. If you're going to make decisions, expensive decisions, you want that data to be good. So that's kind of what we did with that. We brought the data back. We converted those images and measurements into distress summaries. We put all of that data into the pavement management system, and it calculates what's called a pavement condition index. PCI is a pavement condition index. That's a 0 to 100 score, with 100 being absolutely no distress, brand new pavement, and 0 being a completely failed pavement. It is no longer, suitable to the purpose. You can see the color coding. In general, green is good, yellow is okay, red or gray is bad. So when I show you the map here in a second, you'll understand that. But the pavement condition index is a score. It's an index that combines the rutting, the cracking, and all of those things into a 0 to 100 score. So as we talk about these scores, I thought I'd give you just a little bit of an opportunity to see what they mean. So on your first on the left side, you have Addison, or you have Oak Street. It's a PCI of 100. Looks like it's brand new, just paved when we did it. No distress whatsoever. It's in perfect shape. Hadn't even been striped yet. So yeah, it's in pretty good shape. If we move down into the 80s, you might see a crack down the center there. It's sealed, so that a sealed crack is a good crack. And by the way, let me commend you for using crack sealing on your roads. Crack sealing is probably the most effective way to maintain your roads. It keeps water from getting down in. So when I see a sealed crack, I'm like, yes, that's awesome. But you've got a PCI of 82, little cracking, and what's there is sealed. Next slide. We get down into the 50s. On the left side, we've got Lake Park Drive. We have a lot more cracking. Some of it's unsealed, some of it's sealed. I see longitudinal and transverse cracking. I see more distress, and that cracking distress is starting to get to the point where it's going to start affecting the integrity of the roadway, but it's still in pretty fair shape. It's still in very usable shape, and this is something that can be recovered with a relatively minor rehab treatment. When you move into the 40s, though, you're starting to see a lot more prevalent distress, a lot more cracking. A lot of it's unsealed. You're starting to see some what we call structural cracking. It's an indication that the structural integrity of the pavement's starting to be lost. Next slide. Here we have two of the worst, the 35 on, I guess, Lake Park Drive from Lake Manor to Lawn. A lot of rutting there, a lot of fatigue cracking or alligator cracking. It's in the wheel paths. It's showing a loss of structural integrity. A lot of centerline cracking where you're starting to lose support there. And then if you move to the right, a PCI of 17, the whole kind of pavement surface is engulfed with cracking there. So that's a range. It hopefully gives you a visual understanding of what these kind of number ranges mean, and what those roads might look like. Actually, now there's a database, and every street in the village has a PCI rating. So there's a map that can be produced by Paver, that a GIS-based map that can show you every one of those road segments and what the PCI is and what it looks like. So if you're interested and want to delve more into it, they can provide that information. So here's that map, one visualization of it. It's better to look at it on a larger scale. But once again, red is bad, green is good, yellow is fair. And you can see, though, and let me give you a little perspective here. The network average area-weighted PCI is 65. The CMAP payment management program over the last several years has worked with over 90 agencies. In general, the average PCI for most of those agencies has been between 55 and 60. So you're slightly above that curve, right? That's good, because roads that are in the 60s and 70s can be maintained with pavement preservation techniques. It's crack sealing, some seal coats, some things will really help those roads. And what you want to do is keep those pavements in good condition at the least possible cost, instead of letting deteriorate to the point where it costs 5 to 10 times more. That's part of my, my preservation program, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, promotion, thank you. So you've got 111 centerline miles, and the average is 65. That's pretty good. That's pretty fair for a network average. It is something, though, what you will typically see is an S-shaped curve, and it will start dropping off at about 60, and it will accelerate the deterioration. That's not what you want. So we'll go through that in a minute. Next slide. If you break that down into condition categories, what we see here is about 60%, roughly, to the nearest 10%. 60% is fair or better. It's pretty good. About 40% is poor or worse. So you have some work to do. You have some pavements that need work. At the same time, you have a lot of pavements that are in really good condition and that can be maintained with preservation techniques. So this kind of helps you kind of get a grasp on the general condition of your roadway network. Next one. Now, here's the fun stuff. What this slide shows you is basically the impact of investment decisions. We, working with the village staff, we came up with some numbers that we felt were representative of the things that you had been doing over time, and then looked at a couple of different scenarios, is what we call them, budget scenarios. If you spend a certain amount of money, what the outcome will be in 10 years. So that's a time graph, and it shows we start at 0. If you do nothing, if you spend 0 on your pavements, what's going to happen? Well, as you might expect, if you spend 0, you're going to end up in 10 years with a final PCI losing about 30 PCI points. You're going to drop to 35. That's pretty unacceptable. You don't want to do that because the cost to recover that would be prohibitive over time. On the other end, the eliminate backlog. That's fix everything. That's absolutely fix everything out there. You'll have no backlog left when you're done. At $11.6 million a year, that's an unreasonable number. It's a very big number, I understand, but that's the backlog in your network. It's how much work today and over the next 10 years would need to be done to get rid of everything. In the middle there, we have some other fun things. One is to maintain the current condition. Your current PCI is 65. To maintain that condition is about $7.7 million a year, according to the analyses Paver performed. Your current budget, we assumed an annual budget of $2.53 million with a 4% annual increase. These were numbers that were provided by village staff. That works out to approximately $3.1, $3.2 million a year on average over 10 years. So at that level, you're going to start seeing a decline in your pavement condition over time. This would tell me that you may want to consider increasing. If you want to maintain that condition, you may want to start looking at funding sources and opportunities to increase your funding over time. If you wanted to reach a target condition of 70, a PCI of 70, which is a very good target condition, you're looking at about $8.8 million a year. I know those are big numbers. Those are good numbers. But You can also baby step these. You can work your way up over time. Anything you can do to keep that network average from dropping down, the farther it goes down, the more expensive it is to repair. And that's a kind of a key. Next slide. This is a table showing the exact same information. I call your attention to the column. It's the second from the right on my screen. Total funded plus backlog. Basically, the way this is said, if you spend zero, you end up in 10 years with a backlog of $141 million. If you spend $11.6 million on the other end of the spectrum, you spend a max, you end up with a backlog of $116 million at the end of 10 years. So the more you spend, the better the condition and the less it actually costs you. That's weird math. It's kind of that shopping math. You know, when you go out and you say, I saved 20 bucks on this. Yeah, it's shopping math. I don't know if you remember Ross Perot. I'm old enough to remember Ross Perot. It was his fuzzy math. Okay, so that's fuzzy math. Next slide. Here we have now, we also, in part of these analyses, to help the village understand the impact of what we call global treatments. They're surface treatments. They're cape seals or slurry seals. It's thin treatments that actually seal the pavement surface. So we did some analyses with surface treatments and some without to see the impact on both cost and condition. So here we have, over 10 years, at that at the current funding level, you have 21.9 miles of roads that will be touched for major M&R. This is overlays and reconstruction, major M&R. So you have about 21 miles. It shows both the major M&R per year in miles and the cost per year in that. Next slide. Oh, this is the current funding, major M&R, 80% level. What we did was we said, if you take 80% of that and put it onto major M&R, instead of 100%, take 80%, and the next slide will show 20% of global treatments, which are the surface treatments. So this says 17.9 miles of roads are going to be touched if you take 80% of your current funding and put it on major M&R, and the next slide would show 28.9 miles of roads would be touched, with 20% applied to those global treatments, those surface treatments. So you take surface treatments and you put them on roads that are in fair condition, and it brings them back up and maintains them in that condition for 5, 6, 7 years so that they don't drop down and become a bigger problem for you. So with that, if I did my math right, 28.9, 17 was about 45 miles of roads that you touched instead of the 25 that were touched if you put 100% on your major M&R. So that's just kind of the impact. The map shows the roads that Paver predicted where work would be done on those. Next slide. So this is another slide that shows the localized maintenance recommendations produced by Paver. And the reason we put this on here, localized maintenance and preservation, localized preventative maintenance is very cheap for what you get out of it. Crack sealing and patching, and well, that's what we have here, is crack sealing and patching can be done very effectively. It's spot repairs and crack sealing that covers a lot of problems very cheaply and prevents them from becoming much bigger problems in the future. Next slide. All right, my promotion for preservation one more time. If you look at this graph, what it shows is 75% of the pavement life, you've got about 40% drop in condition. After that 40% drop in condition, over the next 12% of a pavement's life, it drops another 40%. So there's, after it hits that threshold, it drops fairly rapidly, and then it tapers off again. This is a hard sell to your constituents. They don't want to see you working on good roads. They're going to ask you hard questions. Why are you spending money on a road that's in pretty good condition when the road in front of my house is in terrible condition? And the simple answer to that question is, if the road in front of your house is in terrible condition, it's going to be in terrible condition until we spend a prohibitive amount of money to fix it. It's going to be that way next year and 5 years from now. If we don't put a preservation treatment on this road that's in pretty good condition, it's going to be in the same condition as the road in front of your house. So if you want all your roads to come down into terrible condition because you don't have enough money to bring them all back up, then only focus on M&R. But if you will use those preservation treatments, the crack sealing, the seal coats, they will help preserve those and keep them from dropping down so that you spend part of your money on M&R and part of your money on preservation, and then you can answer. And that's what you can show with the system that they now have in place, that keeping those roads in good condition is a much more fiscally responsible thing to do than fixing a few miles and letting all the rest of them drop. It's kind of a hard sell. I get it. It's a hard sell. It's hard to tell somebody who lives on a cracked up street that, you know, it's going to take a little time to fix their street, but it makes more financial sense. So our recommendations, and it's not to, you know, spend a lot of money or do anything. Our recommendations are maintain that pavement management system. That means every couple of years you need to collect condition data, because condition data walks away from reality over time. So in 3 to 5 years, we'd say go collect that condition data again. Use that condition data and updated performance models. Use that. The more you use a pavement management system, the more effective it is. The better job it does predicting what you need to know. Use the PMS to make accountable, data-driven, performance-based decisions about what you need, and follow it because it will do things that aren't maybe not as politically popular, but they will make better over time. They will result in a better, they'll end up with a better result. And then use preventive maintenance preservation techniques to make the most efficient use to keep those roads that are in good condition from dropping into poor condition while you're fixing the ones that are in poor condition. Acknowledgements. We'd like to acknowledge the Village of Addison staff for helping us, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for planning for paying for it, AECOM for helping us do it all right, and I'm open for any questions you might have. And I tried to be fast because I know it's so.
Very
I was talking
interesting
fast.
presentation, lots of data. I love data-driven stuff and making decisions based upon facts. And it looks like we looked at all of the conditions and everything like that. Do we factor in the traffic?
Not so much.
That we
Traffic
expect to be on those roads?
Traffic is actually a cofactor. Now, what we did look at was the functional class. So some are arterial, some are collectors, some are local roads. And that brings in that traffic factor, if you will. But actually the condition and the performance model takes into account the traffic level. So right now, since this is a first shot out of the box for the Village of Addison, we kind of used what we had from other communities for performance models to start the ball rolling. As you use this over time, the time series condition data that you collect will help Joel and Kai calibrate those models to actual village construction, weather, all of those things. So it'll get better. That's why I said the more you use it, the longer you use it, the better it gets at predicting. Right now, we put models in there based on experience with other CMAP agencies, our experience working with other Illinois agencies, Urbana, Champaign, Peoria, a lot of those that we've done. So that's where those models came from.
Okay. And I think all of our roads are red that I noticed on the map. So now we understand it's for the good of the community as a whole. So any other questions from the commission or the committee? No? Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 22, audience participation regarding village business. Doesn't look like we have any today. Item number 3, executive session if necessary. Nothing. And item number 24, other business at the discretion of the chairman. Nothing tonight. And item number 25.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Good evening, Addison. I'd like to call the village board meeting for Monday, June 2nd, 2025 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Del Rosario,
Here.
Cluzny,
Here.
Nasty,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Reyes,
Here.
and Mayor Hundley.
Here. Will everybody please rise for Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd remain standing, Pastor Bob, Dave Aycock from Messiah Baptist Church is here to lead us in invocation.
Let's pray. Father, we come before you thanking you for a beautiful day. We thank you for the privilege of being here, living in this country, in this village. We pray for our village leaders, Lord, understanding that every decision they make affects each and every one of us, so give them wisdom. We thank you for our first responders and all that they do. We pray for these new officers that are coming in, and we ask that you would help them, give them strength and wisdom in their service to the village. We pray and ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a little side note about Pastor Dave. So, it'll be 10 years this year. I had a heart attack, and I was in the hospital for 7 days. And not only does Pastor Dave come and do the invocation, and Pastor Bob from Messiah Baptist Church, but each day, those 7 days that I was in the hospital, they both came to visit me. So it's not only do they come and do the invocation at our board meetings, but they're really a part of our community, and thank you for that. So I just wanted to give a little side note. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion second. Are there changes, corrections, or deletion of those minutes? Hearing none. Roll call.
Trustees Del Rosario,
Yes.
Cluzny,
Yes.
Nasty,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
and Reyes.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 5 is proclamation, appointments, and presentations. Tonight is an exciting night for the PD. We're swearing in 2 new officers, which is always a great sign for our department. I'll ask our chief to come down along with our village clerk and welcome our 2 officers.
This is an exciting night, and we are very, very grateful once again that the village lets us do this. We actually have 2 officers to bring up and get sworn in by the village clerk and the mayor tonight, and they should bring us the full staff. And we got a couple police commissioners here tonight. Larry Hartwig and Alfredo Diaz are both here. We were just saying we haven't seen them in about 6 months since these guys got hired, because you've been doing too good of a job, and now we're at full staff. So if I can bring up Officer Ian Peterson and Officer Brian Bejarano. We're going to have the village clerk swear you both in, and then we'll say a few words about you.
Gentlemen, please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
Ian Peterson.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
as an Addison police officer
as an Addison police officer
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Lucille. I'm going to say a few words about both these officers who have been here about 6 weeks now. They've completed orientation, and they're about 5-6 weeks into field training. And then we're going to have the mayor present you with your wallet stars. So they both graduated from the academy on April 25th after 16 weeks in Suburban Law Enforcement Academy. 87 members in the academy, and these two weren't messing around. They went right to the top and took over lead roles in the academy, where one, Ian, was the academy class president, and Brian served as the academy treasurer. So each academy class has to elect officers, and these two took it on and ran in those positions for 16 weeks. Ian comes to us. He's a graduate of Lincoln Way High School in New Lenox. He was in the United States Marine Corps from 2017 to 2021. Titles included team leader, presidential century. I think he worked at the White House for a while. Squad leader, where he led a squad of 12 Marines in Baghdad, ensuring physical security of the Baghdad embassy. And after he finished active service, he was honorably discharged and graduated from Illinois State University in just 3 years with a criminal justice degree. So please welcome Ian Peterson. And Brian Bejarano, same thing, graduated April 25th, graduate of West Leyden High School, graduate also of Illinois State University with a bachelor's degree in marketing and professional sales, but always had an interest in law enforcement. And his past experience is logistics manager at Red, White, and Blue Intermodal, enterprise operations manager at CDO 1000, account manager at Traffics, and business development representative at Arrive Logistics. So congratulations to Brian Bejarano. As we often said, we are very, very picky when it comes to looking for the best the Addison Police Department has to offer. The Police Commission certainly backs that up. The mayor and the board backed that up as well. And detectives and Commander Frank Pope went through a lot of applicants to get to the two best, and they're standing before you today. So before we proceed to pinning on your badges, I'm going to ask the mayor to present you with your Wallet Stars.
I'll just talk briefly before the badges are put on. As you both probably figured out, I consider and the board considers the best department in DuPage County. You know, anybody you really talk to will say the same thing. You have the full support of the board, as other communities around us, not around us, but Cook Counties, other places don't have that. But you know, you're working with some of the best people that I know. The whole board is very 100% behind the police department. I know most of these guys since they started. Brian's going to be one of my favorites because a little side note on Brian, I was coming out of Kiki's and he stopped me and congratulated me. And it didn't click until I got back to my truck that who he was. So that's nothing against, but you know, that's yeah. Brian's going to be remembered. No, kidding me. But you know, you're going to hear a lot about family. You know, and I talk about it a lot. The trustees talk about it. You're coming into a big family. It's not only just the police department. It's public works. It's admin, HR, finance, and even the board members. We're all together, and we support each of you 100%, and you will always have your backs. And I couldn't be more proud of the department, the talent that you're patrolling in, and both of you, because you are going to be with the best department in DuPage County. And now, Roy, you want to have a family member come up and put the badges on? Yeah. So I don't do, you know, the joke is always with the mayors. I learned it from Mayor Hartwig, who's chairman of our police commission. The mayors don't do that because, you know, these gentlemen are carrying guns, and if you stab them wrong, that's not going to work out too good for us. I kind of want to be here for 3.5 more years as mayor, so yeah. So we let a family member do it, yeah.
We're going to have Ian's father, Timothy, and Brian's girlfriend, Rebecca, come on up. If you guys want to spread out, feel free to come up and take photos, too.
Both the trustees would like to welcome you to the village, too.
Congratulations. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Welcome.
Stay safe.
Item number 6 is audience input regarding agenda items before the board. We have none. It's also a great time if you like to stay for the rest of the meeting, but since our committee meeting lasted till 7:30, it's probably going to be a long time before we get out of here. So you're more than welcome to leave, and we'll wait a few minutes before we get going with the rest of the meeting. Have a good night. And thank you for coming out. And the deputy chief can go too, yes, we'll let him. I'll remember,
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 7, consent agenda. Item 7A is approval of accounts payable.
Earlier this evening, the committee recommended approval of the following directives. Directive number 26-06 in the amount of $15,000.54. Directive 2607 in the amount of $840,631.33. And Directive 26-08 in the amount of $910,002.66. The gross payroll for May was $4,249,893.46. We also have one adjustment. Directive number 25-74 was approved on April 21st, 2025 in the amount of $1,586,554.41. It's being reduced by $270 and making the new total $1,586,284.41.
Thank you. Item 7B is approval of a proposal for a one-year contract extension of bid 22-6-1 for SNF Polydyne Incorporated for the purchase of liquid polymer in a not-to-exceed amount of $67,000. Funding in account 5,000.5032-4205. And item 7C is approval of the proposal for a one-year contract extension of bid number 22-5-1 for laboratory services for Tech Lab Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $23,500. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda. On this discussion? Hearing none? Roll call?
Trustees Del Rosario,
Yes.
Kluzny,
Yes.
Nasty,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
and Reyes.
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved. Item 8A, 8 is ordinance and resolutions. Item 8A is second reading of ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business licenses.
At our meeting on May 19th, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business licenses. The committee recommended approval, and first reading was given at the May 19th Village Board meeting. Second reading is requested.
This is second reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business licenses.
Motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the ordinance. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Item 8B is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class C1 liquor licenses for the Addison Park District located at 120 East Oak Street.
At our meeting on May 19th, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class C1 liquor licenses for the Addison Park District located at 120 East Oak Street. The committee recommended approval, and first reading was given at the May 19th Village Board meeting. Second reading is requested.
This is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class C1 liquor licenses for the Addison Park District located at 120 East Oak Street.
Motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second?
Motion is second to adopt the ordinance. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Item 8C is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class D liquor licenses for VLMA LLC doing business as known as Pizzeria located at 426 West Lake Street.
At our meeting on May 19th, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class D liquor licenses for VLMA LLC doing business as known as Pizzeria, located at 426 East Lake Street. No, West Lake Street. The committee recommended approval, and first reading was given at the May 19th Village Board meeting. Second reading is requested.
This is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Village Code to increase the number of Class D liquor licenses for VLMA LLC doing business as known as Pizzeria located at 426 West Lake Street.
Motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the ordinance. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. 8D is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 13 of the Village Code regarding open burning.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends certain provisions of Chapter 13 of the Village Code regarding open burning. The committee recommended approval, and first reading is requested.
This is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 13 of the Village Code regarding open burning.
First reading?
First reading. Item 8E is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 11 of the Village Code to add a new article regarding motorized bicycles.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends certain provisions of Chapter 11 of the Village Code to add a new Article 18 regarding motorized bicycles. The committee recommended approval, and first reading is requested.
This is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 11 of the Village Code to add a new Article 18 regarding motorized bicycles.
First reading?
First reading. Item 8F is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business denials.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business license denials. The committee recommended approval, and first reading is requested.
This is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of Chapter 10 of the Village Code regarding business license denials.
First reading?
First reading. Item 8G is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of the Village of Addison zoning ordinance with respect to the M2 General Manufacturing District regarding fire and law enforcement training facilities.
At their meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this ordinance, which amends certain provisions of the Village of Addison zoning ordinance with respect to M2 General Manufacturing District regarding fire and law enforcement training facilities. The committee recommended approval, and waiver of second reading has been requested by staff. The attorney is asked to read the ordinance.
This is first reading of an ordinance amending certain provisions of the Village of Addison zoning ordinance with respect to the M2 General Manufacturing District regarding fire and law enforcement training facilities.
Motion to waive the ordinance, waive the second reading, sorry.
There's a motion And the second, is there a second?
Second?
Yeah.
To waive second reading?
Motion to approve the ordinance?
We have to do the,
Oh,
we
the
have to,
voting,
yeah.
sorry.
Under discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You want a roll call? Roll call, then, I'm sorry, roll call, please?
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
Motion to approve the ordinance?
Second.
Motion second to approve the ordinance. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call?
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
Motion is adopted. Item 8H is consideration of a resolution approving 2 estimates from Beep LLC for the purchase of 1 TB 94800 megahertz transmitter and 8 IP receivers, required accessories, and reprogramming in a total not to exceed of $45,687.33, and a request to waive the formal bid process.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves 2 estimates from ABEEP LLC for the purchase of 1 TB 9400 800 megahertz transmitter, 8 IP receivers, required accessories, and reprogramming in the total not to exceed amount of $45,687.33, and a request to waive the formal bid process. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving 2 estimates from ABEEP LLC for the purchase of 1 TB 9400 800 megahertz transmitter, 8 IP receivers, required accessories, and reprogramming in the total not to exceed amount of $45,687.33, and a request to waive the formal bid process.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8I is consideration of a resolution approving an estimate from Logic Consulting for extreme core switches for the Village of Addison in the not-to-exceed amount of $183,013.64, and a request to waive the formal bid process.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves an estimate from Logic Consulting LLC for extreme core switches for the Village of Addison in the not-to-exceed amount of $183,013.64, and a request to waive the formal bid process. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving an estimate from Logic Consulting LLC for extreme core switches for the Village of Addison in the not-to-exceed amount of $183,013.64, and a request to waive the formal bid process.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8J is consideration of a resolution approving a proposal from Garnis for the renewal of the Government Transparency Suite subscription in the amount of $20,775.51.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a proposal from Granicus for the renewal of the Government Transparency Suite subscription in the amount of $20,775.51. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a proposal from Granicus for the renewal of the Government Transparency Suite subscription in the amount of $20,775.51.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
So motion and second to adopt the resolution. On discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8K is consideration of a resolution approving a web service sales agreement for Revise LLC for updates to the village's website in the amount of $11,182 for the first year.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a web services sales agreement from Revise LLC for updates to the village's websites in the amount of $11,182 for the first year. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a web services sales agreement from Revise LLC for updates to the village's websites in the amount of $11,182 for the first year.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
This motion is second to adopt the resolution. On to discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario,
Yes.
Cluzny,
Yes.
Nasty,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
and Reyes.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8I is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Rubicon Environmental Services LLC for the ceramic diffuser cleaning project at the North Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $16,600.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a quotation from Rubicon Environmental Services LLC for the ceramic diffuser cleaning project at the North Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $16,600. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Rubicon Environmental Services LLC for the ceramic diffuser cleaning project at the North Wastewater Treatment Plant in the amount of $16,600.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. On to discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Reyes,
Here. Yes.
Trustee O'Brien,
Yes.
Trustee Nasty,
Yes.
Trustee Cluzny,
Yes.
and Trustee Del Rosario.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure you were all paying attention.
We are.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8M is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Comline and Sanderson for the purchase of replacement parts for the rebuild of the North Wastewater Treatment Plant belt filter press in the amount of $27,450 and a request to waive the formal bid process.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a quotation from Comline Sanderson for the purchase of replacement parts for the rebuild of the North Wastewater Treatment Plant belt filter press in the amount of $27,450 and a request to waive the formal bid process. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a quotation from Comline Sanderson for the purchase of replacement parts for the rebuild of the North Wastewater Treatment Plant belt filter press in the amount of $27,450 and a request to waive the formal bid process.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. On discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario,
Yes.
Cluzny,
Yes.
Nasty,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
and Reyes.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. 8N is consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of one John Deere X758 Signature Series tractor and related equipment from HAW LLC through a Sourcewell joint purchasing contract in the amount of $27,466.76.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves the purchase of one John Deere X758 Signature Series tractor and related equipment from AHW LLC through a Sourcewell joint purchasing contract in the amount of $27,466.76. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of one John Deere X758 Signature Series tractor and related equipment from AHW LLC through a Sourcewell joint purchasing contract in the amount of $27,466.76.
Motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nostine?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 8O is consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of two 2025 Ford Escape vehicles from Curry Motors Commercial Center through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative contract in the total amount of $61,437.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves the purchase of two 2025 Ford Escape vehicles from Curry Motors Commercial Center through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative contract in the total amount of $61,437. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving the purchase of two 2025 Ford Escape vehicles from Curry Motors Commercial Center through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative contract in the total amount of $61,437.
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. 8P is consideration of a resolution approving a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 626 North Swift Road.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 626 North Swift Road. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 626 North Swift Road.
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. 8Q is consideration of a resolution approving a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 920 North Lombard Road.
At our meeting earlier this evening, the committee reviewed this resolution, which approves a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 920 North Lombard Road. The committee recommended approval, and the attorney is asked to read the resolution.
This is consideration of a resolution approving a First Amendment to a lease agreement between the Village of Addison and Chicago SMSA Limited Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless for 920 North Lombard Road.
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second to adopt the resolution. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Trustees Del Rosario?
Yes.
Kluzny?
Yes.
Nasty?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
And Reyes?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. Item 9 is Mayor's Report. I have one item, approval of a 24-hour liquor license for the Knights of Columbus for an event at St. Philip's Church on Friday, June 20th. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion second. On discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is carried. Item 10 is Officers' Report. Village Attorney?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Village Manager?
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Village Clerk?
Oh, yes. And this coming Thursday is the kickoff of Rock and Wheels. So remember Thursday, June 5th, kickoff of Rock and Wheels with the opening band of Deacon Blues. And the headliner band is Dire Straits Legacy. The museum will also be open, and we encourage you to always visit the museum, see where we came from so you know where we're going. The Rally Point Addison Township Veterans Service and Assistance at Addison Township on Tuesday, June 10th, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. This is Veterans Assistance and Services. Also, there's the 5K Run Walk for a Cure to benefit the American Cancer Society. This will be held on Saturday, June 14th at the community park. That's it.
Item 11 is commission and board reports. There are none. Item 12 is executive session. We don't need one. Item 13 is audit participation regarding village business. We have none. And item 14?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. On discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.